Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 222nd installment in the Torah portion of the week. We are holding by Parshas Bamidbar, the first Torah portion in the book of Numbers. Right, we just started the book of Numbers. We finished up last week the book of Leviticus, which ended with a double portion. Bahar B'chu Kosai, right, as we mentioned last week. So we're holding by Parshas Bamidbar and talked about the census in the wilderness. Talked about the census of all the tribes except for the Levites who are not counted over here. Talks about the encampments, right, which we spoke about. What's the deal with the flags, right? We spoke about that. You can look at my YouTube channel at Rabbi Chaim Kaufman, see a video on that on Parshas Bamidbar. And at the end over here, it says something interesting. At the end of the Parsha, it says, Book of Numbers, chapter 4, verse 19. It says, "Thus shall you do for them, so that they shall live and not die. When they approach the Holy of Holies, Aaron and his sons shall come and assign them, every man to his work and his burden." Right? So the Torah tells me the Kahatites, their responsibility, what they're supposed to do, right? What their obligation is, right? So there's a command over here in verse 17 that God speaks to Moshe, saying, Moshe and Aaron, saying, "Don't let the tribe of the Kahatites family be cut off from among the Levites." And the verse we just read, right? They should live, they shouldn't die. And his sons, now this is really the point here where we want to get to, and his sons come and assign them, every man to his work and his burden. Right? Simple explanation. We would say every tribe, what's their obligation? Their obligation is to do whatever their job is. Right? Whatever Moshe and Aaron give them as their job. So comes along Moi Rebbe, Arav Agon, Rav Moshe Shlita. He should be well, and he brings down over here in Tam Vadas, in his commentary, right? In his commentary on Chumash, and he says like this. He says that it's brought down in many midrashim. There are many midrashim and many commentaries over here that go into detail. They go into detail over here about why each family has specific jobs, right, and what they're supposed to do. Now, it's interesting. Each one's given their own job, right? They're given their own job. But Rebbe here says, if they weren't given their own job, in other words, if they didn't have fixed work to do for each specific family, what would they do? What essentially would they do? So he says everybody would push, everybody would shove in order to get the work they wanted. Right? In the Mishkan, in the tabernacle. And what would that lead to? Fighting, arguments, machlokes, and essentially, because they're arguing, and they might be arguing for the sake of heaven, we'll see. But even if they're arguing for the sake of heaven, what do they want? They want their job, whatever it is. Right? They may feel they're best qualified for it. But the reality is, if they're fighting, even for the sake of heaven, maybe, it can cause them to die. Right? This is what it says over here, that they shouldn't die. So therefore, Rebbe says that each family is given their job, whatever their job is. And what do we learn out? What do we learn out that everyone's given their own job? He says we learn out that mitzvahs in different things we do, even if they're done for the sake of heaven, no ulterior motive, except the mitzvah. They're doing it for the sake of heaven. Nonetheless, person has to be careful. It doesn't lead, they don't fail over here by arguing, right? Getting into disagreements. And what's going to happen? They'll lose out. They'll lose out on the mitzvah itself. Because the reality is, even if they think they deserve it, even if they're doing it for the sake of heaven, what's going to be? They're fighting over here. They're arguing over here. So they're going to lose. They're certainly going to lose. Right? They won't even get the mitzvah. They're too busy pushing other people. Too busy trying to get the job they think belongs to them. This comes along a Rav Agon, Rav Yisrael Zev Soloveitchik, of blessed memory, known as the Brisker Rav. Brisker Rav, the famous son of Rav Chaim Brisker, of blessed memory. And what did he warn? What did he say? He said that a person should stay away from machlokes, stay away from disagreements. In regard to what? Really in regard to everything. But what was he saying specifically about? Saying Kaddish. That there's an obligation for someone who says Kaddish, the mourner's prayer. Let's say for father, mother, sister, brother, God forbid a child, or a spouse. So there's an obligation for however long to say Kaddish, to say the mourner's prayer, and to lead services 3 times a day, not including Shabbos, not including a festival. You still have to say Kaddish, but you don't have to lead the service. So what can happen? Person wants to lead because that's the custom. Someone who died, you lead the service. So what can happen? Someone gets there, they say, I also have to lead the service. Who's going to take priority? Who's going to give in? What can it lead to? Machlokes, disagreements, fighting. So, said the Brisker Rav. Brisker Rav said it's better to give in. Better let the other person lead services, even if you feel that you deserve to do it. Regardless, that's better for the person who died. Because imagine you're sitting there arguing. You're fighting with somebody about leading services, about saying Kaddish, saying the mourner's prayer. And you think you're right, and even if you are, how can that help the deceased person? Leading the service helps. Saying Kaddish, the mourner's prayer, helps. But at the expense of somebody else, fighting with somebody else, he says no. That's where you lose. Better to give in than start a whole fight. It's not worth it. Not worth it to the memory of the person. So let's go back. What did my Rebbe say over here? He said even if a person's doing it for the sake of heaven, person has to be careful, shouldn't stumble in fighting disagreements. Because what do we see? We see this is a holy endeavor. Right? Serving in the Mishkan. Serving in the temple, the Beis HaMikdash. So the thing is that everyone wants the job. Maybe many people want the most prestigious. But not everyone can have it. So what's going to happen? You might say, first come, first serve. So what's so bad about that? What's so bad is people are going to push each other around. They're going to say, I was here first. I deserve to be first. And they'll get into a fight. They'll get into an argument over here. You know, I was first. I'm bigger. My family's better. You know, I have stronger pedigree. Blah, 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 blah. They'll say all kinds of things. And they'll fight. So we see over here that's bad. That can lead to a lot of sins over here. It comes on the Torah. What does the Torah tell me? Torah tells me there's an order. Each family, Moshe and Aaron will tell them what they have to do. And why each family got what they got? Argue with God. Right? It's God's issue. But essentially, they have nothing to say over here. And the reason is because they're being told what to do. If they're being told what to do, it's all organized. If it's organized, take it up with God. You don't like it, too bad. But if we left it open, we made it a free-for-all, then that's what it would be. Be chaos. Be absolute chaos. So the commentaries here say this is why there's an order. That each family is going to do their own thing. Right? They're going to have separate things to do. And they'll be given work according to what God says. So that's also why you have Kohanim, you have Levites, and then you have everybody else. Everyone has a job. So in the temple itself, here we're talking about the Levites, and the families are broken up however they're broken up, in order to do what they need to do. But in the bigger scheme of things, we have a mixture of people amongst the Jewish people. We have Ashkenazim. We have Sephardim. Right? Sephardic people, Ashkenazic people, Hasidim. Different types of Hasidim. We have all kinds. In 98% of everything we all agree. You know, we do have different customs between Ashkenazim, Sephardim, Hasidim. There are different things we do. They're not the same, okay? But the reality is we're all one unit, right? That's what we say by Rosh Hashanah. By Yom Kippur, we're all one unit. Doesn't matter. We have different customs. maybe a different mode of dress. But 98%, 99%, we agree on everything. But each one has to find their path. You know, the right path for them. Person can grow up Hasidish, not for them. You know, maybe they want to be Ashkenazic. Maybe they want to be Sephardic. You know, whatever. But we're all part of the same unit. So we have to realize we need to work together. And this is a mistake, the major mistake that Korach made. Because essentially, Korach comes out against the Kuna, against the high priesthood. It says Moshe Rabbeinu showed favoritism to his brother. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm not doing anything for myself, doing what God said. Korach didn't get the message. Korach said, I'm just as great. I deserve over here. Maybe he does. But God said no. Right, so it says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, says the ethics of our fathers. Jealousy, honor can kill a person. So some of the commentaries say literally exactly what happened to Korach. Because he didn't internalize the message. So Moshe Rabbeinu could have said, listen, I'm not doing anything on my own. This is what God tells me to do, and this is your job. This is what you're supposed to do. Because we see over here, even by the Levites, within the Levites, everyone has a job. They have different jobs. You know, it's not about, oh, it's not fair. It had nothing to do with being fair. God is telling you, this is what they're going to do. This is what this family's going to do. That family's going to do. Imagine if the second baseman, on a baseball team says, you know what? I'm going to be the pitcher. I'm going to be the pitcher. Well, guess what? If he can't pitch, and he and they shellac him, gives up 8 runs. He can't be the pitcher. He has to do what he's best suited to do for the sake of the team. Can't do it for its own sake. That'll ruin everything. Right? Competitive sports, it's all about teamwork. Right? You do what's best for the team. Not what's best for you or your ego. Because if you go against that, the team suffers. So here, okay, it's a little bit of a jump. But here, God's telling you, this is what they need to do. This family, the other family. And this is what's best. This is what's best so they don't die. Right? It's also pretty strong. Strong language here. It's not just, we're going to say, okay, everyone's got their job. And this is what they need to do. So there won't be any fighting. That's true. But didn't the Torah say right before? Do not let the tribe of the Kehatite families be cut off among the Levites. They shall do for them, they shall live and shall not die. It's not just this is what you have to do. Shut up and do it. This is about doing it so you don't die. It's a lot more severe. But it boggles the mind that they could want to do something other than what Moshe said. Now, why is that? So let's cut them a little bit of slack. Let's understand they want to do it for the sake of heaven. Right? That's an example my Rebbe gave. They want to absolutely do it for the sake of heaven. But even if they want to do it for the sake of heaven, what are they doing? They are trampling on somebody else. They are fighting against somebody else. But I want to be the best. Why shouldn't I do X job? Why shouldn't I have this mitzvah? Who says you're allowed to fight for it? Who says you're allowed to push and shove in order to get it? So how else am I going to get it? You know, it is ironic. Sometimes we see certain religious events. Yeah, people are zealous to do the mitzvah, but at what cost? You know, you push someone else to get it. Push someone, you know, so you can see better. A little bit hard to say. Anyone who's been part of something like that, you say, why are they pushing for it? They want to get closer. I also want to get closer. So what makes them any better than me? This is something we lose sight of. And it's something we can't lose sight of. If the brisker are upset, it's more important for the person that died that you give in, let the other person lead services, than to sit there and fight. What does that do for the sake of the soul of the one who died? It should only give anguish. You're trying to do it for the best of your ability. You want him to get all the merits by you leading the service, by you saying Kaddish. In the end, you're desecrating God's name. Because what are you doing? You're pushing and shoving. You say, no, I got here first. Yeah, but every night I pray here. This is my place. Well, too bad. Go somewhere else. I'm praying here now. I'm going to lead now. It's a chutzpah. But what's really behind why the person's doing it? For the right reason. He wants to lead the service. He wants to do this for the sake of the person that died. But he's losing sight of the fact that he's treading on somebody else. He's knocking someone else around. When he knocks someone else around, that's not a mitzvah. Just the opposite. It's forbidden. You're desecrating the honor of the memory of this person. You're not benefiting them. That service you just led, that Kaddish you said, were nothing. Because you knocked someone over to do it. You trampled over somebody to get your way. But he's doing it with the highest intention. He's doing it with the greatest motive. Doesn't he want to lead the service, say Kaddish for the person who passed away? 100%. But at what expense? Could be you lost all merit over here. You didn't help the dead person at all. Made it worse. Giving in is not a bad thing. Tell me it's important to lead the service. Yeah. But destroying somebody else, pushing him around like he doesn't exist, I want the mitzvah. It's all about me. This is exactly why there's a command over here that each family is going to do what God says for them to do. You will not have this issue. Because God knows. Everyone's going to do it for the sake of heaven. That's not a question. But someone's going to want this. Someone else is going to want that. So who gets it? They fight. We got to learn when it's not worth it to fight. A lot of times, most times, it's not worth it. Better just give in. Oh, you mean I should be allowed to be to be trampled on? No. But you have to know when to give in. You have to know when it's not worth it. And this has a lot to do with common sense. As important it is to do ex mitzvah, it's more important to have proper respect for your fellow humans. Right? For our fellow man. And somehow we sometimes forget this. Because we're too busy thinking this is for the sake of heaven. This belongs to me, not you. How is it possible to forget? Because we don't internalize the message. And we have to internalize the message. Because if we don't change. We don't become better. We don't do things that other people do. Because that's not Derech HaTorah. That's not the way the Torah wants me to go. So better, as the Brisker Rav said, lose out on the mitzvah of praying, leading the service, than trampling something else, because then you lose. You only lose. In all these things, lead to disagreements, to fights, and that goes nowhere. That goes on the side of demerits. The side of sin over here. That's a stumbling block. Right? And that is something we have to keep in mind at all times. So I want to remind everyone, I have a class on duties of the heart every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. I do 2 Q&As every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Israel Time. I have a class on the book of Leviticus, chapter 14, every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Israel Time. I do Tanakh Talk every Monday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Israel Time, Perkei Avos. Every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Israel Time. And I also have conversion classes. Anyone has any questions on any of this, you can find me on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkoffman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com.